Welcome. We are live and we are going to be answering some incredible questions about sleep training, about autism diagnoses, about siblings, and so many more things, co-parenting, husbands, etc., etc. Now, just to remind you, this is part of my No Question Goes Unanswered April Family Reset, and I am here every question that I get in on YouTube, on Instagram, in my email inbox, on my comments everywhere, DMs. We're collecting them. I've got a mega list and we're going to go through them. Let's start with Renata's question. And she asks, can you sleep train babies and not let them feel abandoned? Okay, let me know if you have indeed sleep trained your baby and if you feel that it went well, maybe feel some guilt or shame or regrets about it, maybe feel totally happy about how it went, etc., etc. Look, this is a highly personal and quite contested subject. And I know a lot of people feel very strongly and very differently about it. And I also think that it's quite different for each parent and for each child, depending on temperament, lifestyle, resources, support system, physical health, etc., etc., etc. But my short answer is yes, you can sleep train babies without making them feel abandoned. And I think that when it comes to sleep training, one must look at the whole family holistically and not just at the effect on the baby in that moment, because sometimes it can be extremely overwhelming and emotional and scary and worrying if we think about a baby crying and if we just consider that as the main question, like the baby's crying and I'm not constantly immediately responsive. I'm slowly reducing my responsiveness and getting them used to falling back asleep. That can make any new mother feel terrible, worried, am I traumatizing my baby? Am I damaging my baby's brain, etc.? But when you look at it as a big picture question, like, okay, I'm terribly sleep deprived and I'm not functioning well during the day. Maybe I'm not even safe during the day. I'm getting more depressed and bluey and resentful of my role as a mother during the day. I'm not able to self-care or care for my child, etc., etc. And you look at the baby's need for good quality sleep, and you feel like, wait, my baby really absolutely must get good quality sleep, then you start to shift your priorities and your worry from the crying to the sleep deprivation. Because I tend to think that sleep deprivation, both for baby and for mom, are a more harmful concern, a more harmful risk than some crying. Now, can you sleep train them? Yes, you can do more gradual, more gentle methods. Sometimes this has worked for me, sometimes it hasn't, depending on the baby and the timing. And some people just never do it. They just wait for their babies to kind of outgrow it, which may or may not happen. But I think that there is absolutely the opportunity to gradually remove yourself from the situation. Now, I will just say something about gradual removal, like sitting next to the baby and stroking them, and then just sitting there and not stroking them, and then moving a meter away, and then moving out the door. I think that a lot of my students have told me that has created greater frustration and greater amounts of crying and length of crying and intensity of crying, because the baby feels you're right there and you're not helping me. And that tugs at the mother's heartstrings more and makes the whole situation harder than other parents who have told me that they went cold turkey and there was 15 minutes of crying the first day and then 8 the next day and then none the third day. So this is really up to you. I know that there's mixed research on this, but overall, I guess my bottom line is just that the mindset needs to be about optimizing sleep. That should probably be our priority. Let me know in the comments. Hi to everyone joining me live. Welcome. Tell me where you are in the world and how old your children are. And let me know, have you sleep trained your baby? Has that helped? Has that not helped? What are your thoughts on it? We always eventually did some kind of sleep training. It was usually a gradual one. But even the gradual ones, at the end of the day, there is a cold turkey element. Like there is an element of letting them cry it out at a certain point, to a certain extent. Now, you can also listen to your child and try and understand, are they just kind of crying themselves back to sleep, or are they distressed, right? Although again, that can kind of mess with your head. It's not easy as a mom, especially as a new and sleep deprived mom of very small babies. So I'm curious what you will say. The main bottom line is that I want to share with you is definitely choose a system and then stick with it. Don't confuse yourself. Don't over research. Don't get analysis paralysis. Don't get stuck in guilt and shame, because there isn't one right answer for this, right? There isn't one right answer for how to establish healthy sleep routines. I think that's personal and individual and depends on temperament, etc. Some babies don't cry at all. Some babies are completely, distressed. So you've got to be attuned to that and make it work for you. But ultimately, sleep really matters. Okay, next question is from Celia. And she writes, "Hi, Avital. I'm curious to know if you wake up at 5 a.m. to fit in time for yourself. I'm carving out time for me in my schedule, and I was curious if you are part of the 5 a.m. club. Would you mind sharing? And thanks." Okay, I am usually not part of the 5 a.m. club. I've had periods in my life when I would wake up at 5 a.m. And go to the gym or do those kind of, CEO morning routines, etc. Now I'm part of the 6 a.m. club. I wake up at 6 a.m. and I don't carve out time for myself before my children wake up. I am very, very lucky and privileged to work from home, which means that I can carve out time for myself after I do my morning routine with my kids, after I drop them off at school. So I get to work out and, clean the house and do my housework and that kind of thing at about 8 a.m., not 5 a.m. Now, I know that's because I work from home, so I have that kind of opportunity. Not everybody does. But if I didn't, it would be entirely possible that I would wake up early. It just happens to be that I'm an early bird. I'm a morning person. I like the morning and I function much better in the morning than in the evening. And so I think that, I think that's entirely up to you. But no, I am not part of the 5 a.m. club. I'm part of the 6 a.m. club. What clubs are you part of? Do you wake up before your children to carve out time for yourself? Do you get time for yourself in the evening, or do you get time like me during the day at some point? Let me know. I would love to know what works for you and how you make it work. Physio with Nish, hello. She says, "My child is 7.5 and still wakes up every night and comes to our room. And how is that for you and for your child?" I would imagine that's not ideal. In other words, I would imagine that that's hard for you and interrupts your sleep and certainly interrupts their sleep. My 6-year-old and my 4-year-old and my 9-year-old very rarely, but sometimes have a nightmare and will come into my room. But if it's a regular thing, I would imagine that that's pretty disruptive. And it really could be a very good idea to establish better sleep hygiene. In the studio, we have a whole project that's called Family Rest, and it's all about establishing family sleep routines, evening routines, wind down routines, sleep locations, right? Sleep arrangements to make sure that everybody is sleeping in their place and not disrupting each other. I think there's something so romantic and beautiful about the idea of a family bed and co-sleeping and all of that. But let's say for me, it just really doesn't work beyond the age of like 4 or 5 months. I think maybe I slept with a baby in my room until about 9 months, but in my bed or near me, only at the very beginning, because I'm a sensitive sleeper. I wake up easily and I was just not getting the rest that I needed. And I think my baby maybe wasn't either, but I really just selfishly, for me to function well as a parent the next day, I can't be woken up all the time during the night for so many years. At some point I needed to establish better boundaries around that. So I'm curious how that is for you, because I would imagine that's quite challenging. All right. Next question is from Chelsea. And she says, "My children are 8 and 6 and both low support autistic. I like to have a timetable at home with a daily routine so the kids can have a visual to help them stay on track because we're often late for school. They are allowed screens between 12 p.m. and 5 p.m., which they don't like. I get a lot of pushback from them and defiance to even start getting dressed in the morning until I physically help them. It's very draining. My co-parent has no set routine or boundaries, and they play screens right up to bedtime, and he is not interested in cooperation. And he says I'm too controlling. I would love to know how I can deal with this. I think it's the cause of a lot of dysregulation, and he dismisses my concerns." Okay. First of all, I just want to send a lot of love and support to you, Chelsea. It sounds really very challenging to deal with so much pushback, and on top of the challenges that you have with your 2 children, to have the challenges of aligning with your co-parent who is undermining you and disagreeing with you and having a difficult time. I want to give you some kind of mindset shifts that might help you to look at the situation differently. And a lot of my coaching is about the practical, pragmatic solutions, the hacks, the tips, the tricks, the behavioral stuff, the routines, bedtime routines, morning routines, laying out our schedule, traditions, rituals. All of that is inside of the studio, my membership, and doors are open right now. So go check it out at highfam.com/studio. All of that is there for you. But what's much more meaningful that I can offer you, what's really life-changing, is not the tips and tricks, but rather is the mindset. Because you can have all of the amazing Pinterest-worthy routines printed out, emotional regulation corners and the most amazing play zones, like I teach in my book, Reclaim Play, and all the most beautiful and amazing organized time and space. But if your mind is feeling overwhelmed, is feeling dysregulated, is feeling like you can't handle it, is feeling like it's all too much, is feeling like you're confused and overwhelmed by all the noise out there, then none of that really is going to work. You're still going to be aggravated, frustrated, just banging your head against the wall, or up all night feeling really guilty, because it's all about the mindset. I want you to feel, as a parent, inside yourself, inside your skin, comfortable, confident, clarity, conviction, like you know what you're doing, like you know where you're going, like you're not confused, you're not like, being whipped around with whiplash with every different, Instagram post that you read and celebrity that you follow is not confusing you, because you know who you are and how you parent, and you feel good and comfortable about that. That's what I want for you. Okay. So the first thing I would say is that you said that the kids that you get a lot of pushback, and it's very draining, that there's a lot of defiance to even start getting dressed in the morning until you physically help them. And so I want to just help you reframe that a little bit. Often it's easy to look at our kids and think, oh, they're misbehaving, they're defiant, they're oppositional, oh, it's the diagnosis, it's the label, it's the temperament, they're spirited, they're a deep feeling kid, they're a sensory seeking kid, right? We are, in our culture, very highly tend towards the label, the diagnosis, the challenge, right? Looking at the kid like, oh, you can't possibly behave, you can't possibly get it together, you're a defiant person, my kids are just defiant, my home is just madness, that type of thing, right? But I think it would be better in this case not to view their pushback as disobedience or as willful defiance, because you're going to end up feeling defeated and resentful of your children, right? And instead, I want you to look at the morning routine and the pushback and the difficulty and the overwhelm as a sign that they are overwhelmed and that they don't have enough predictability and stability to kind of guide them, right? And not that it's just bad behavior that, oh, they're just badly behaved, but bad behavior that needs real direction and helping, okay? So they need more co-regulation for you to be regulated and calm and a strong leader. And they need that predictability to transition, where it's always happening the same. It's always happening with, oh, we first brush our teeth, and then we wash our hands, and then we eat our breakfast, and then we get our shoes on, or whatever, right? Something that's very predictable, to reduce that emotional charge, right? And so that you can respond from a place of leadership, of compassion, of creativity, of control, but not of controlling them, where you stay in control, okay? Now, let's talk about the co-parenting belief, okay? I want you to let go of this belief that co-parenting will only work if both parents agree. When you feel stuck in a loop, like my co-parent is not cooperating, my co-parent is dysregulating them, my co-parent is ruining the kids, my co-parent is going against all of my rules, and they're undermining me, and they are confusing the children, and they're dysregulating the children, then you are going to feel doomed. You're going to feel disempowered. You're going to feel like there's nothing I can do. I give 100% and he gives 0%. And so now we're completely doomed. Okay. But I want you to stop thinking, oh, it's all on me. It's all on me. It's all on me. And start thinking, I'm doing my part. I can only control what I can control. Listen, if he's open to conversation, if you have a good relationship, if you can create great communication between you, and I can help you with all of that, okay? Inside of my Married You course, I teach exact communication skills for couples. And even if you're no longer a couple, it will help you, because you'll learn how to talk about the kids, how to talk about parenting, how to talk about co-parenting. There's an entire module about that inside. But the point is that if you had someone to talk to, if you had good communication with him, I would say get on the same page. But it sounds like you can't get on the same page. It sounds like he's not interested in having those conversations. It sounds like you're not working on those communication skills. And so then you have to remember, I can't control his house, okay? I can only create safety and structure in mine. And you have huge effect on your children. Yep, they might come back a little bit discombobulated and dysregulated from him. That's okay. That might happen. That's his house. But now what happens in my house? And that's where you have control. Many times our feelings of disempowerment come from us trying to control the things that we don't control. Right? We just get so frustrated, like, oh, what my co-parent is doing, what the weather is doing, what God is doing, what the government is doing, what the in-laws are doing, what the grandparents are doing, the friends, right? It's so frustrating. But when we follow those stories in our head, we just get anxious, we just spiral, we just feel frustrated. And it's kind of like, I'm forgetting her name. I'm blanking on her name for a minute. A really incredible teacher. I will get her name. And she says, if you're in their business, then who's minding your business, right? We can't bleed our energy out into worrying about everybody else's effect on our children. We have to focus on what we do control, right? On what we can actually do. So I don't want you to feel so powerless to his parenting, because you need to focus on what is within reach, which is your parenting, okay? Now, I want you to remember this third thing, which is that your parenting, your clear leadership, your structure, your predictability, your high expectations, that's not controlling, that's not tyrannical, that's not authoritarian, that's not old-fashioned or mean or angry or traumatizing in any way. That's compassion. That is what your children need. They really need boundaries and expectations from you, okay? Do not absorb your co-parent's criticism where he says that you're too controlling, okay? Don't doubt yourself, okay? I can just tell you right off the bat, he's wrong about that, okay? I mean, maybe you're too controlling. Maybe he's right about that. But he's wrong about the idea that having structure and predictability and routine and rhythm and rules and expectations is too controlling. I think that's probably coming from his own inability to enact those boundaries and to hold those expectations. Okay, because really the truth is that this is a situation where you are absorbing his external invalidation, right? His criticism of your parenting, and that might affect your internal beliefs. And I want to strengthen you. You are a strong, powerful, inspiring leader to your kids. You're going to give them enough structure, routine, clarity, leadership, rules, expectations for their life, right? For the both of you. It doesn't matter what their dad's doing. You're going to be able to give them this clarity, this leadership in their life. Okay, so you flip the script and you say to yourself, I lead with structure because my kids need clarity to feel safe, right? That's not controlling. That's not overbearing. That is caring. That is being an attuned, well-adjusted, organized parent. Okay. And you can trust your instincts on that. You can stop outsourcing your confidence to someone who isn't aligned with that or to someone who can't take that seriously. Trust your own instincts. You really are the expert on this. And if you can mend the relationship with him a little bit to be able to get him on side, to be able to have conversations about that, I'm really happy to help you with those communication skills so that you guys can at least co-parent really well together. But in the interim, your children need and deserve that type of structure, like getting dressed in the morning without you having to physically, kind of chase after them throughout the house. Okay. All right, Chelsea, I really hope that helps. Best of luck to you. And I warmly invite you into the studio, highfam.com/studio, where we can continue this support. Okay, AAFW2PW says, hi, Avital. I love your videos as always. Thank you. I think the hardest thing I found about being a mother is the lack of community. It takes a village to raise a child, but it feels like the parents are expected to be the entire village. I would love to have a video on your thoughts and advice on this. Wow. Okay, so the truth is that I 100% agree with you. It is very, very challenging. We have an absolute endemic isolation. It was funny, years before the COVID pandemic, I made a video series about the pandemic of isolation and about how people in the West really feel extremely lonely. Family sizes have shrunk We have less siblings around, less cousins around. We're living further and further away from each other, traveling more for work. We are less connected to our neighbors. We are not going to church as often. We just don't have that sense of the enveloping community that helps us to raise our children. And my husband and I have, over the decades, gone to great lengths to, make many sacrifices and move across the world and build that up, because that's such a key thing in my own life. So I totally relate to what you're saying here. Now, you absolutely do need a physical village in your environment. You need it. It is non-negotiable. It is protective of every kind of health you have, mental, physical, financial, everything. And you also can rely somewhat on a virtual community, but you've got to be careful, because a lot of Facebook groups, a lot of Instagram communities are, on balance, do more harm than good. That, unfortunately, is the case for a lot of us, right? Where we get a lot more insecurities from comparisonitis. We just get, pulled down all sorts of consumerist rabbit holes. We feel like, why does everybody's family look like a walking Christmas card, and I'm here in this chaos? Because we're comparing our backstage to their front stage, to their filtered, polished, edited, curated imagery of their family. And so often online communities make us feel really even more isolated, actually, and even less secure. Not to mention all of the toxicity and the drama and the polarization and the judgment and all of that stuff that makes it really, really hard to hang out online. And so that is actually why I started the High Fam Studio. The High Fam Studio is an online membership. It's an app, but it has a kind of really wonderful kind of Garden of Eden style community, because we're all there trying to build a strong family culture. That's what we're there to do. So beyond the curriculum and the coaching and me holding your hand throughout the whole thing and giving you all the tools and skills to be a really confident leader in your family, it also does scratch part of that itch of the village. Okay, because the people inside the High Fam studio are incredible, right? My members are from all over the world, from all walks of life, from all religions, from all family structures, homeschoolers, unschoolers, public schoolers, everything. Big families, small families, single moms, same-sex couples. We run the gamut of all different types of families. The diversity is huge, but we're all aligned on the same mission to strengthen our family culture. And for that reason, I would say that, I really hope that you join the studio to get that level of village. But there's more to it than that, which is that our entire fourth quarter of the studio is all about community. So it's all about building your kinship. Okay, so that's your family and your extended family, your friendship. Those are all the relationships that you have with people who aren't family, and your influence. And those are the relationships that you have with people like mentors, teachers, institutions, online influencers, that type of thing. And really making sure that those relationships are strong, satisfying, and healthy, and that they align with your values and your goals. So that is something that I guide you on in depth inside of the studio, and that we really go deep on creating adult friendships and support systems, and the play dates and the homeschool co-ops and the, family vacations with other families, and building relationships with our in-laws and with our grandparents, and healing relationships with our siblings and with our cousins, and all of those types of things, which I think are absolutely crucial. I can't stress enough how impossible it is to raise well-rounded kids without that support system. Right? It's not really possible. You can do it for 2 or 3 years. You can't do it for the long term. Okay, it doesn't work in the long run. And because that's become such a rarity in our culture, we actually need to build it piece by piece. We actually have to, it's funny because you think, oh, community, okay, I'll sign up to the local whatever community center, right? But the truth is, it starts way before that. Let me just peel some of the layers of the onion back for you just really quickly. If your home is cluttered, okay, say your home is a mess right now, as so many of our homes are, then what happens is that you feel insecure about the way your home looks. You're like, oh, it doesn't look hygienic enough. It doesn't look inviting enough. I don't have enough chairs for all the guests. I don't have matching cups. You start to think, oh, I don't want people to see it like this. And then you're less likely to take up opportunities to invite someone over, right? Your neighbor knocks on the door to ask a question, and you would want to invite them in for coffee, but you're not going to because, the kitchen's such a mess, and the living room is such a mess, and there's a stain over there that I need to take care of, etc. right? And then you didn't invite them for coffee, and then you missed that opportunity. And then that friendship that could have flourished into like a lifelong friendship and a really meaningful, deep part of your support system didn't happen because of the decluttering. So these things tend to have a knock-on effect. It's the decluttering, it's feeling good in our bodies, like inside the so I say this because these are all projects that we do inside the studio. We declutter our homes, we high vibe our homes with plants, with lighting, with pretty objects, making it feel like, oh, this is a place I feel comfortable in, I'm in my right mindset, I'm happy. If someone shows up at the door, I will invite them in because I'm not embarrassed, it feels nice in here. Then there's things like me, myself. If I feel like, oh, I look sluggish and overweight, I'm not put together, my face doesn't look good, my hair doesn't look good, then I'm less likely to go out to the playground. And when I'm at the playground, I'm less likely to go up to another mom and be like, hey, when you were around here, I see your kids are the same age as my kids. What's your name? Right? You're not going to do that if you feel all insecure in how you look. So we do Fit Fam, where we start moving our bodies and getting better energy and feeling better in our skin. And we do Mom Glow Up, right? Where we decide, okay, I'm taking care of my skin, I'm taking care of my look, I'm refreshing my wardrobe, I want to look good, I want to feel good. And then you start to feel, okay, my home feels good, my home feels streamlined, my body feels good, I feel like I look my best, I'm much more confident, I'm much more happy to go out in the world to build community, right? And then we say, well, yeah, I took care of all of that, but the truth is that my schedule is a mad mess. I'm running around after my kids all day. I don't know when bedtime is. Well, it's all overscheduled or underscheduled. We're bored. We're confused. I'm always rushing and feeling late, right? So I don't have time to organize, say, having people over because it's too overwhelming. It's too much to organize. Okay, so we say, 1 minute. Well, let's figure out our schedule. Let's do fam flow. Let's create a daily flow, a morning routine, an evening routine. Let's add in some projects throughout our month that build community. Hey, how about you do a campfire once a month and invite a couple of families over that are potential friends and you start to build a relationship with them? Hey, how about we do fam nature once a month? We get out on a hike and we do a picnic with some other families. Okay, so now we're starting to build relationships. And then we say, you know what? That's great, but what about my family? They live far away. Christmases are always so stressful. Thanksgiving, I never know if I should travel, if I shouldn't travel, if I should host. Okay, come into the studio. We're going to do Fam Fest. You're going to plan a family party once a year where you host your extended family and you create a tradition that builds memories, that builds nostalgia, that builds connections and deep roots and legacy and relationship with people that sometimes it's not so easy to connect with, right? Extended family, maybe it doesn't go so smoothly. Okay, so don't worry. Come to office hours and we'll talk about how to handle your father-in-law's temper or your mother-in-law's criticism or the fact that your parents don't really know how to connect with your kids or whatever it is, right? Those are the types of things that we have to sort out piece by piece by piece by piece. And in the end, it looks natural. In the end, it just looks like, oh, there's a happy family. There's a functioning family. There's a high vibe family. They seem to get along. They seem to run a smooth home. They seem to have a good schedule. They seem to all look their best and feel their best. Seems like they eat healthy and they eat around the table together. They're not addicted to screens. And it just looks like, it just happens. Some families are just like that. But no families are like that without you, without the mom, usually, or one of the parents being the glue, the mastermind, the one that's sitting there thinking their evil thoughts on how they're going to dominate their family and create an incredible family culture, right? Someone is sitting in the background thinking, okay, if I want connections with the grandparents, I better plan Christmas parties or family vacation or Thanksgiving dinner. If I want meaningful relationships with my children, if I want to build more community, I better start belonging to our local community. I better start hosting more. We better start getting out with other families and managing our issues that we have because this one's tantruming and that one doesn't like being on the grass. And right, we have to figure all these things out. But you stepping in and making those plans project by project by project. I'm going to declutter my house. I'm going to get my schedule in order. I'm going to feel good in my body and the way I look. I'm going to start building relationships. I'm going to start being a little bit bolder and taking steps and inviting people over. That's how you build the village. And that is what I can help you to do inside the studio because we do all of that in there. Okay. Beyond being your actual village online as well. I hope that answers your question. Country Bumpkin says, my 5-year-old boy and 3-year-old girl fight quite a bit, and I specifically see a lot of aggression from my boy. Do you have any tips for how or when to intervene? How to give consequences for antagonizing a sibling, channeling an aggression? Thank you so much, and I love your guts. Oh, I love your guts too. Thank you so much for that sweet question. I do have some suggestions on when to step in, and ask me how I know. I'm one of 6. I have 5 children. I've certainly seen plenty of sibling, aggression, rivalry, arguments, etc. Okay. So here's what I would say. When you see violence escalating, you need to step in with firm, strong boundaries and stop it from happening. Okay. And that usually at that point is going to mean physically stopping them. Okay. So that's going to mean coming in and being like, I won't let you hit, hold their arm. You don't need a lot of verbal cues and explanations. Don't overtalk, especially to a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. You don't need that much talking. It's a physical barrier that's stopping them from being violent. And that is because, neurons that fire together wire together. If I keep experiencing this thing that I'm annoyed with my sister and then I whack my sister, that becomes a habit. That actually just becomes my behavioral go-to, right? It becomes my default. And so you actually need to have a pattern interrupt. You need to disrupt those neurons firing together and rewire the brain to say, wait, when I'm annoyed with my sister, I don't just go and whack, because when I go and whack, there's a block. I can't do that. I need to instead do something else. Oh, I need to take a break and walk away. Oh, okay. That's what I need to do. I need to go and ask an adult for help. I need to find a different solution. I need to brainstorm. I need to talk it through. I need to just move back and wait until we figure out a solution, right? So that's why I do want you to interrupt when actual violence is occurring, because actual violence needs to be, the neurons need to be disrupted from each other so that the neurons don't fire together anymore. Okay. So that's the first thing, is we do step in when kids throw things, bite, hit, kick, whack, anything that's physical aggression, you physically stop it. You're going to pick them up and take them to their room. And you can just say, if you need to say anything at all, you can just say a really simple line, I won't let you. I won't let you throw things. I'm going to pick it up. Okay. I won't let you hit. I won't let you whack. Okay. Now, if they are bickering over a thing, right? Over a toy. She touched me. He took it from me. I wanted to sit there, and there's low grade conflict, and you are regulated. And that is key. You yourself have to be regulated in order to teach them conflict resolution. Then you could take it as an opportunity to teach them some communication skills. Okay. So that would look like, this is not when there's aggression. This is not when they're in fight or flight mode. When they're baring their teeth, when they're making fists, when they're in fight mode, that is the moment for a hard, cold boundary. Not for empathy, not for coaching, not for many, many words, but a cold, hard boundary. Up, stop, a pattern interrupt. Okay. When they are in fight mode, that is the time for a break. There's just one thing to do when you're super angry, and it is to take a break. I treat it like someone being drunk. Okay. When you're drunk, you don't operate heavy machinery. You have to wait. You'll sober up. It's not you. You're not a bad person, but being drunk makes you out of control. Okay. So it's not them. They're not bad kids, but being angry is not a way to operate your machinery, right? You can't function in the world when you're angry. And so you have to take a break. If they're not in fight or flight mode, if they're just, it's not fair, I want this, I want that, then you're able to actually do coaching. Inside the studio, I have an entire month dedicated to coaching our children, teaching them good mindset habits, teaching them good communication skills. We talk about teamwork. We talk about conflict resolution. We talk about active listening, validation, empathy, reflection, right? How to voice your concerns and your criticisms. We talk about helping kids constantly shift away from narcissism and entitlement and towards being helpful, grateful, gracious, looking to give rather than to take, right? And so I would love for your 5-year-old to start getting that kind of coaching from you. Hey, sweetie, you're the big brother. I want to see generosity from you. How are you going to help your sister? What are you going to offer her? Oh, you see, she wanted that toy. Maybe you could be generous and magnanimous and mature. And you can tell her, here, you can have it first. I would like a turn after you. Okay. Yeah, I know it's not always easy when another kid wants something that we have. I get it. But I'm so proud of you being patient and allowing her to have her turn. Should we use a timer so that you can each get 10 minutes? Right. And, I can't do this just so quickly. There are a lot of different steps to this type of coaching, but you want to teach them these various communication skills where they're able to actively listen to each other, brainstorm a new solution, and then enforce that solution together and go through it. The key is not to allow aggression to become a mode of operation. So if he does become aggressive, you can say, I can absolutely help you with this problem with your sister. I can see it's a problem and we can solve that, but I can't help you if you're being aggressive. When you're being violent, you need to take a break. When you're being violent, you'll never get what you want. You never want to reward violent behavior with getting what he wants. He must not make that link in his brain that when I am aggressive, when I threaten a tantrum, when I threaten a meltdown, when I threaten violence, that's when the people around me cave because they don't want to deal with my big explosive behaviors. No, he needs to get the message from you that it is nothing for you, that it is no big deal. You're always happy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to put him in a timeout and to wait it out. His aggression will never pay off. His aggression will never get him what he wants. It's never going to be like, okay, fine, just give it to him because he's going to hit you otherwise, right? That can never be the way he is going to be perceived. So you say how to give consequences for antagonizing a sibling. The consequences for antagonizing a sibling are that you don't get what you want. Whatever it was that you wanted, okay, you wanted to choose the show, you wanted to play with that toy, you wanted to sit in that seat, you wanted to drink from that cup, whatever it is that you wanted, right now, you will get all of the rewards and all of the attention withdrawn from you because of how you treated your sibling. So that means you now need to be somewhere else. You can't be with people. I will say to my child something along these lines. Look, I can't let you be with anyone else because you're not treating people safely, right? You're not being gentle. When you can be calm, when you can behave like a civilized individual, you can rejoin us, and we'd love to have you. I can't wait for you to rejoin us. We're baking here, and I would love you to rejoin us when you're calm. For as long as you're being aggressive, you're not part of our activity right now because you can't control yourself. Go and calm down, take some breaths. Now, of course, you can teach him breathing techniques and you could do a calm corner and all of the things that people like to do. I don't like to do any of that. I just tell my child, choose anywhere in the house where there's no person. You can't destroy property and you can't hurt people, but you can go and calm down wherever you want. Read a book, scream into a pillow. I really don't mind. Whatever it is that floats your boat. I would not actually encourage the aggression. I would not encourage screaming into a pillow, for example, is a popular one, but it's not great to encourage because what we get used to, we do more of, right? So if you kind of say, oh, he has a lot of aggression, he has to let out a lot of aggression, etc., then you're kind of egging on and agitating the idea that he does, instead of agitating self-control and self-discipline and calming down and talking normally. Okay, so we reward children's behavior with attention, right? That is very rewarding for them. And we reward their behavior with them getting what they want. If you take away those rewards and you make it very unrewarding, it's not very effective. I don't get what I want when I treat people badly. Then you'll watch that behavior melt away. And when you then reward his good behavior, you're very encouraging. You give a lot of support, a lot of attention, a lot of unlocking privileges and exactly what you want and extras because you're kind, because you're patient, because you're helpful. Please note, and if you're multitasking, come back to me. This is really important. Please note a very disturbing trend in our culture. The disturbing trend goes as follows. The well-behaved children, those who are patient, those who are kind, those who are thoughtful and generous, don't get any attention. It's like the well-performing smart kids in the class, the teacher ignores them. Why? Because she doesn't have time for them. She can't give, she has no extra attention to give to the kids who are anyway doing well. She doesn't need to sit and tutor them and help them and push them and give them attention because they're fine. So they just, right? It's that some people think that it's second children or middle children or whatever. But the kids who are just easygoing, who just go along to get along, who just are cooperative, get ignored at home. And the kid who kicks up a massive fuss and makes it hell on earth and, tantrums and threatens is the one that gets all of our time and attention because they're monopolizing it. But what we're doing by doing that is actually rewarding the bad behavior. I would rather you withdraw, you become a bit more ignoring, right? Benign neglect, just a little bit like, oh, you're doing that? I'm looking this way then. I'm going to go play with the baby. I'm going to go cook some food. I'm busy that day if you're having a tantrum. That is not how you're going to get my attention. When you're calm, okay, that's when you're going to get my attention. Now, I'm not suggesting you don't care that your kid is having a struggle. You can express empathy. You can say, I see you're having a really hard time and I'm here for you when you're ready to calm down. I'd love to give you a hug. And afterwards, you can totally coach them. Whoa, you felt really, really mad that your sister took that. I know, I saw you get really angry and I'm so proud of you that you calmed yourself down. Sometimes our anger just gets the best of us and it makes you feel like you want to throw something across the room, but you calmed yourself down. You took yourself to the corner. Yep, you needed some of my help, but I'm really glad that you're now able to rejoin us because I'm so excited to do this activity with you, right? That's how we shift the focus and the reward and the attention onto the positive behavior. Does that make sense, Country Bumpkin? Let me know. And all of you joining me live or in the replay, let me know what your key takeaway is from all of this, from this Q&A session. There are several more like it coming down the pipeline because April is not yet over. But these are all a way for you to test drive my live coaching session, okay? My live coaching style. If you like these Q&As, if you find them insightful or helpful or useful in any way, this is the type of thing that you can expect inside of the studio, along with the PDF guides, the video courses, the bonuses, the incredible community, all of the other stuff that you get. And I just urge you to check it out because it's completely risk-free. And this price will never be coming back. And it's only once a year. So it's highfam.com/studio. Check it out. Give it a try. And I would love to welcome you in there. Hayakam says, do they get the message that they're only loved when they're well-behaved? What is unconditional love? That's a great question. Also, what about the idea that all feelings are okay? Okay, fantastic. So I know this idea that that if you withdraw your attention, if you ignore them, then they feel like they're alone with their big feelings. I get that. I'm not suggesting that you need to express disgust or rejection of them because they're having, say, a tantrum, okay? But I am suggesting that you do need to communicate to your child that antisocial behavior gets antisocial results. In other words, people don't want to be with badly behaved people. Now, is that unconditional love? You love your child even when they're antisocial. You can be loving and warm and respectful and connected and available to them and responsive to them, even when they're behaving really badly. So I believe these are two completely separate train tracks, okay? One is a stable, unshakable, unquestionable, lifelong, rock solid, very deep, unconditional love, okay? That is at the root. That is the foundation of my relationship with my child. I love you no matter what. I love you when you're at your worst, and I love you when you're at your best. I love you when you make good choices and when you make bad choices, when you're well-behaved and when you're badly behaved. My love for you is not called into question. I'm never going to talk to you in a language that shows you that I don't love you when you're behaving badly. I don't agree with this perspective because I think it's an insecure, self-doubting perspective. Let me put it this way. I know that even if I yell at my kids, even if I shame them, even if I blame them, even if I tell them, I was disgusted with the way that you behaved that way. And I was so ashamed of your behavior. And I was really disappointed in you. Even if I said things like that they know and I know, and it's not called into question that I love them. Why? Because of everything else in our life. Okay. I am consistently their mother. I'm always there for them. I show up for them through thick and thin, day in, day out. I show them love through bonding behaviors, eye contact, physical touch, connection. I show them love through my care and nurturing of them, cooking for them, cleaning, dressing them. I show them love through nurturing their development, educational programs, reading to them, teaching them things, showing them the world, right? My love is not a question. Okay, I know that. And Chaya, I want you to know that. I don't need to constantly prove my love through special little magical scripts in case my child ever thinks that if I say you are badly behaved, that I'm actually saying you are bad and unloved. I could tell you that I've yelled at my kids plenty of times, and not one of them thinks I don't love them. Not one of them thinks that my love is conditional. Okay. I think that's an insecure frame of mind, and it's not true. Your parents yelled at you. My parents yelled at me. My parents sent me to my room, and I didn't think they don't love me. I might have been very mad in the moment. I might have been very upset. I might have thought I hate them. I want to die. But 5 minutes later, I calmed down. My prefrontal cortex came back online, and I understood that that was a consequence for my poor choice. And it wasn't because they don't love me. I still knew that they would give the shirt off their back for me, that they would jump in front of a bus for me. Their love was not actually called into question just because they gave me a punishment or a consequence in my childhood. So I don't think we have to have that concern. Okay. But I do think that parents are a proxy for society. Parents are the first and most profound teachers that children have on what's expected of them. Okay. And if you accept bad behavior, if you are soft and warm and loving and encouraging, and you just sit there being like, oh, maybe it's because you're hungry. Maybe it's because you're tired. Maybe you didn't really mean that, did you? Or maybe if I just explain and explain and explain, or if I just validate and empathize with you again and again and again in a sugary, sweet tone, then maybe you won't behave that way. If I take that approach, then I am teaching my child that their aggressive, violent, disruptive, destructive behaviors are okay. That people are going to be gentle about that. People are going to be understanding about that. People are always going to search and dig and be a detective to find out exactly what the unmet need was, exactly why, they felt sad. Oh, you felt sad. So that's why you whacked everyone and ruined the birthday party. Okay, then just don't feel that we don't love you. We love you. We love you. We love you. We love you. It just doesn't ring true to me. I think it's much more important for them to know we love you and you may not behave that way. That's not acceptable. You can love your child and not like them very much at that moment, right? Or not like what they're doing or not like their behaviors. Or you can be honest with them about saying, if you behave in an antisocial way, other people are not going to like you. I'll love you no matter what. But other people won't invite you to their parties, won't, want to mentor you and teach you, won't want to be your friends because you're behaving in a way that, frankly, most people will find unacceptable. As your mom, I have extra, time for you, extra patience, but most people will not. Now to your third question. You said, what about the idea that all feelings are okay? Well, feelings, he can feel whatever he wants, but she's not talking about feelings. She's talking about aggression. Aggression is a behavior. Okay. Now, I do have an issue with the idea that all feelings are okay, but let's just say all feelings are okay. You can feel mad, but you can't hit. Okay. That's fine. You can go feel mad over there if you're throwing things at someone. You can go feel mad as much as you want. You're allowed to feel whatever you want. I can't get inside your kishkas and change your feelings, right? That's your feelings, but you can't enact those feelings on people. You can't be violent. You can't be aggressive. Okay. So feelings may be okay, but that doesn't mean actions are okay. Let's go a little bit deeper. Are all feelings okay? Well, on the one hand, like I said, yes, validate all emotions, accept all feelings. Feelings are okay. But on the other hand, what I teach inside the studio is this, that all feelings are born of thoughts. Okay. All feelings are born of thoughts. And if you are constantly thinking, it's not fair, I hate my sister, my mom loves my sister more than me, I need to fight in this world to get mine. If you have skewed thought patterns, if you're thinking about things in unhealthy, unhelpful ways, and many of your kids have these types of thought patterns, I can't do it, it's too hard, why even try, nobody likes me, life isn't fair, I never get what I want, I'm always the last one, any kind of negative thought pattern that is holding them back, that is pessimistic, that is personalization, that is black and white thinking, all or nothing thinking, or catastrophization. If they have these cognitive disorders, these fallacies, these skewed ways of thinking, then they're always going to have negative emotions. Okay. And you know this from your own life. When you're always thinking those feelings, those disempowering feelings like it's not fair, I can't do it, life's too hard, what if this happens, what if that happens? If you're always having anxious thoughts and anxious feelings or angry feelings, resentful feelings, why did my husband do it? Why do women have to work so hard? Why do I have so much mental load? Why is motherhood so difficult? Then you're always going to feel those feelings of sadness, frustration, anger, resentful, right? You're going to feel those negative feelings. And so are the feelings okay? Sure, they're justified, they're valid. Everybody's allowed to feel whatever they want, but they're not compulsory. Your child doesn't have to always feel jealous and angry of their sibling. You could actually teach them to think in a better way, to stop thinking about, oh, it's so unfair and I hate my sister, and start thinking, you know what? I'm lucky to have a little sister. How can I help her? What can I do for her? How can I be generous to her? That's going to make me feel better. So you can actually choose words, actions, and thoughts that lead you to feel better. And instead of just constantly agitating and aggravating and encouraging his aggressive feelings and thoughts, we can start to teach him to think in a way that doesn't lead to aggression, that doesn't lead to so much anger, anxiety, frustration, etc. Does that make sense? Okay. I hope that makes sense. Hakeem, let me know if that lands for you. And meanwhile, let's read this question from Capturing Canarijo. Am I saying that right? I don't know. I'm sorry. How do I get my 9-year-old child to do activities on his own that are not just playing with a basketball or watching something on a screen when at home? I remind him about card games, drawings, but he just wants to go back to those 2 things plus reading, nothing else. And then he says he's bored. Okay. So first of all, those are good activities. He has good activities, right? Basketball. What else did you say? Reading, watching something on a screen, of course, like all kids, that's something he wants to do. So I personally do limit screen times. That's not available to my kids. And when my kids say that they are bored, here is my response. First of all, okay, like not my problem. This is not my problem. I don't need to solve my kids' boredom. Perfectly normal to feel that as a kid, perfectly within your control as a child, not my area of, it's not my business. It's not my business if you're bored. If you're bored, figure out something to do. Now, I might remind them, oh, you're bored? Well, guess what? There's a dog you could walk. There's puzzles. There's books. You could write a story. You could call a friend. You could play table tennis. You could go on a walk. You could do handstands, right? There's all these different things on offer in our home, right? So I'm sure you'll figure it out. And if they don't, then I actually would say that this is an opportunity for them to be more helpful around the home. If you're bored, there's laundry to fold, there's vacuuming to do, there's dishes to wash, there's a dog that needs to be walked. I would love help with the ironing. I would love help cooking dinner. There's plenty of things that you could do. And I personally am on a big mission to get more kids to do more chores because I think that it's really, really good for them. There's a lot of research to show that it makes them feel that they are needed, that they are capable, that they are part of a community, that they are mature. It makes them think of others more. It makes them more grateful for the things that they have and less materialistic and more likely to take care of things. And it makes them a much better, adult in the future, right? Because they can handle things. They can live on their own. They can cook a meal. A 9-year-old could cook dinner. A 9-year-old could certainly do loads of laundry, could fold laundry, could take care of others. He could be a volunteer mother's helper or even get paid to be a mother's helper for a neighbor or a dog walker or a car washer, right? There are plenty of things. He could rake leaves. So there are plenty of things that he could do that are genuine adult contributions to society. And unfortunately, in our culture, that's really gone by the wayside. But that is how tweens and teens build up their confidence and build up their sense of self. And it's protective against depression and anxiety, because what our tweens and teens are so, ailed with in today's generation is nihilism. Is when they feel like, what's it all for? What am I even good for? What's the point, right? They just feel that there's something kind of pointless about their life. And that's because they haven't been put to work. They haven't been doing anything contributory. They've spent their entire lives being passively educated and entertained. Right? Everybody around them is just educating them and entertaining them, just showing them things, just giving them things, just doting on them. They're being cared for and nurtured for in completely passive ways that they don't have to work for. And that is going to be demoralizing for anyone of any age, especially from the age of kind of 7 and up. It's demoralizing to be waited on hand and foot, to be constantly the passive receiver of what others are doing other people's work and labor is just there to take care of you. But when you feel like you're a contributor, you're part of this, you have a stake in this, that is actually what builds up your confidence. And so boredom is fine. Boredom is often the gateway to creativity. Just let him be bored. Just remove your responsibility. You don't have to convince him and cajole him. Just set a limit on the screen. Remind him that he has A, B, C, D, E, F, G options, and allow him to find his creativity, right? Like maybe it's going to be, he's going to learn more cooking. Maybe he's going to suddenly, my 9-year-old is very busy with her 3D pen. She's creating all of these creations, and she makes a little theater, and she makes puppets, and then she acts out those plays, like lots of creative projects. Maybe it's going to be being more involved in maybe a youth movement like Boy Scouts or something like that, where he has projects and he has team members and he has things to look forward to. But overall, beyond all of that, I would just say he needs to do some meaningful work. He needs to do something that's challenging, that's hard. Maybe it's a class, another form of entertainment and education, like a martial arts class, which would be great for him. But maybe it's just helping out more around the home or in your community. In my community, for example, we have a lot of young moms, unfortunately, a lot of widows, and, they need help. So a lot of young teenagers and tweens are going in the afternoons to help them with bath time, with bedtime, with their toddlers, and that makes them feel, they think they're giving, right? When kids are doing jobs and helping and volunteering, they think they're giving, but really they're receiving. Really, this is what builds up their sense of self and their sense of value and their sense of worth. And it's so protective against all of the, the identity crisis that Gen Z has. A lot of people in this generation think that their worth comes from their image, from their, their brand, right? Their social media following, the way they look. And those things might all be important to them. But when they start to help others, that's when they really receive a very protective dose of self-confidence, of the true self-esteem, right? Of real self-regard, of feeling that I really do have an identity. I'm part of something that's bigger than myself. Capturing, does that make sense? Does that land for you? Does that answer your question? I really hope it does. VKSO says, I just started listening and immediately agree. Along with the chores, I'm teaching them how to interact with the world outside. Thank you for what you do. Hope many more listen to you. Thank you so much. That's such a beautiful thing to say, and I appreciate your comment. Interacting with the world outside is a great thing, right? Can they learn to publicly speak or to debate or to volunteer or to be part of some kind of, group, that kind of thing. Capturing says, I agree. He has responsibilities for himself, like folding his clothes. He always resists it. He just throws the clothes in the drawer. Okay, so maybe this is an opportunity to help him to step up, right? What can he do around the house? Can he learn to fry an egg? Can he learn to, sweep the floor, vacuum, clean, set the table, things that are going to be a little bit more helpful to you as well. So that's the big bonus as well. Okay. I think we have time for another couple. And this is from Prativa, who says, hi, Avital. I have 2 children. One is 6, the other is 2. They are great kids. Only thing is, my daughter asks for hugs with my husband at all times. She misses him a lot when he's not around. He is self-employed. He mostly works around her school time only. And ongoing, increasingly demands of hugs, particularly from her dad. We're both thinking we have missed something. I will appreciate you have experienced something on that. Okay, so Prativa, if I'm understanding correctly, what you're saying is that you feel that there is almost an inappropriate amount of seeking touch with your husband, of wanting hugs from him. Now, we all know that it's perfectly normal, wonderful, special, appropriate bonding for kids to hug their parents, right? We want our kids to want to touch us and to be close to us, to sit on our lap, to hug us, to snuggle us at bedtime, and all of that is great. But what I'm reading from your question is that it sounds like it's more than that. It's overbearing. Maybe he feels touched out, or you feel like, why is she seeking so much physical touch from him? Now, I know that our minds often go to kind of the darkest places, like has she, seen something or been through something, God forbid, that causes this kind of, maybe inappropriate levels of touch seeking potentially. And I can't rule that out. I don't know. I don't know what's in the history. But given that you haven't put that in the question, let's assume that you know that that's not the case. Okay. let's assume that you think that this is a perfectly, healthily developed child who's had a normative childhood experience without any major red flags, and you're just wondering what could lead to this kind of behavior. With that assumption in mind, what I would say is that it's perfectly okay to set certain boundaries around certain behaviors, even if they're positive behaviors, okay? Even if they're positive behaviors like wanting to hug daddy, which is unequivocally positive, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing in any realm. Like, for example, if a kid is reading too much, okay? They're just reading for hours a day and it's taking them away from other things like moving their body or making friends or helping out around the home, then I would set a limit on that. Okay. A kid that is constantly touching daddy, always wanting daddy, always seeking daddy, you can affirm and validate her love for daddy. And isn't it beautiful? And isn't it wonderful? And yes, of course, you can hug him when you wake up in the morning. You can hug him when you see him, when you come home from school. You can come in for a cuddle or two in between those times, but from then on, and then also at bedtime. But it can't be a constant thing because we have other things we need to do. Daddy needs to focus on this. Other people also want hugs from you. We need to get outside. We need to do our homework. Etc. And it's okay to gently and lovingly, without shame, without blame, without making a big deal out of it, just be like, okay, sweetie, that's enough for now. One last hug. And now we're going to take a break for an hour. That kind of thing. Okay. And I say this because sometimes it's really hard as parents to know, like, can we set limits around things that might make our children not feel loved or something like that? You're not going to not make her feel loved. Daddy loves her. Daddy wants to give her hugs. She's not going to feel rejection. You're not going to reject her. You're just going to put the behavior in a more appropriate cadence. Okay. Some kids do this with many other behaviors. It's just a little hard when it comes to hugging because you think, oh, hugging is just, it's good. We should encourage it. We don't want her to feel rejected. But think about it like this. Kids that go and brush their teeth in a bit of an obsessive compulsive way, right? Repetitively, again and again and again, or washing their hands, right? Those OCD behaviors, for example, or kids who are always maybe talking about, let's say, obsessed with knock jokes, and they're just telling the joke again and again and again. Any behavior that's too repetitive starts to become a social problem, right? It starts to annoy people, even a positive behavior. Even if it's, say, giving compliments or, putting on a show or singing a song, if you do it too much, it becomes detrimental because it takes away from other things that you need to be doing, and it irritates the people that you're with, even the people who love you most in the world, like your husband. And so I hope you haven't missed anything, okay? Because if you have, you'll need more help than I can give you here. But I don't think that you've missed something. I think that this is just probably almost like a habit formation, okay? Kind of excessive, almost compulsive, right? A bit obsessive habit formation. And that is something that kids do with all sorts of different things, maybe like touching the lights or counting the squares, or right. It just becomes a little bit of one of those almost intrusive behaviors that they find hard to control. Don't attach so much meaning to it just because he's a man and it's, a physical attention. I wouldn't necessarily read into it unless you have reason to. Right? If you have other reasons to read into it, other things that she's displaying, any kind of promiscuity, any kind of talk that she's talking about, experiences that she's had, or over interest in bodies, or precocious questions, innuendos, that kind of thing. The question, put to one side the fact that it's hugging daddy and just look at it like a compulsive behavior. Any compulsive behavior should be monitored so it doesn't become excessive. Does that make sense, Prativa? I hope it does. I hope it helps you. And I will move on to the next question. Okay. Chelsea, hello. You're right. My daughter is 8 and is waiting for an autism assessment. She's very sweet and intelligent. She's very rigid thinking with difficulty seeing other people's points of view. She likes to make everything about her, and she struggles to let others have an opinion. The play revolves around her imagination. She will often impulsively scratch her sister or her best friend or appear at school if they come into her space and to look at her screen with her, or take her stuff. Or if they don't quite understand the rules of her made-up games she wants to play and they get it a bit wrong. She will lash out for the smallest of reasons, but to her, the scratch is absolutely justified, and she refuses to apologize because in her eyes, they deserved it. I don't know how to stop this impulsive behavior because it's very fast and I'm often not in the room to catch it because I'm busy doing other things. It has led to her seeming very entitled, demanding, and selfish. And I don't know if that is the autism or if I have not been leading her correctly. I want to get it right because she's giving off spoiled vibes and I don't want her to lose any friends over this behavior. I don't know how to fix it. And to be honest, it's affecting our relationship. I completely understand. I hope that makes sense. I'm in the stage of development. I'm in a stage of self-development and I've just found your content and I'm loving your perspective on parenting. I wish I had found this earlier. I fear there is too much damage to our relationship to get the bond back. Chelsea, my dear, it is not too late. You are in the right place. You have found me at the right time. I'm so glad that you're here. And I just want to tell you, I genuinely believe in lifelong brain plasticity and the ability to change and to recover and repair bonds. And that's what you're here doing. And just kudos to you. Okay. I know you care deeply. I know you're clearly really ready to grow and to expand and to help your daughter. And let's dive into some strategies on how we can reframe this. Okay. I want to help you shift away from fear. I've damaged my child. She's not going to have friends. I can't catch this. It's gone on too long. The bond is too damaged. All these kind of fear-based things that I'm hearing in your question, to empowered leadership, saying, I'm the mom. I've got this. I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to stick to it. I know how to handle this and I'm moving forward. Okay, let's reframe your thinking so that you're not feeling overwhelmed, but rather you're feeling empowered. And that really is at the crux, at the core of what we do here in Hi Fam, because you're the leader and your kids need you to feel confident. Your kids need you to have clarity and conviction. They do not need you disheveled, self-flagellating, really upset about your past experiences, worried that you've traumatized them, guilty. They don't need you like that. You're of no use to any of your children when you're curled up in a ball, right? We need to feel strong, capable, moving forward. Okay, repair, next step. I've got this. That's the attitude. That's the vibe. Okay. So the first thing I want you to say to yourself, and sometimes we label our children like, oh, my child is spoiled, right? Or my child is aggressive. And those labels might have some truth to them. Of course they do, but it's more helpful for us to break it down rather than kind of insult them or slap a label on them or feel like, oh, it's just the autism. It's just the ADHD. It's just because she's the oldest, because she's the youngest, because we live in America, whatever, right? It's more helpful to break it down to the actual skill that is lacking. Okay. So in our modern day parenting age, we often use labels like she's spoiled or even like autism to as a shorthand for lack of specific skills. Okay. And what is more empowering to us parents is to focus on what are the skills that I need to help my child build. My child, in this case, is lacking certain social skills. She's lacking certain emotional regulation skills. Her brain is jumping to, aggression immediately. And your brain is jumping to labels like she's spoiled, she's entitled, right? That kind of thing. And that creates a sense of shame for you, maybe also for your daughter. And that reinforces your helplessness as a parent. So instead, I want you to think about, okay, she's lagging in some skills. Okay, she's 8 years old. I really want to help her with these social skills so that she doesn't miss out on friendships, right? But this isn't like a character flaw. This is just part of her development. This is just part, like a baby can't walk, right? It's not because they can't walk. It's because they haven't yet developed those skills. It's a gradual burn. Childhood is long. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So just have some focus. Stay with the program, have some confidence and belief in her. Okay. She's not selfish. She's just really struggling. She's struggling to take the other person's point of view. If she was doing this at 25, we might say she's selfish, but she's still in development. Okay. We have not yet got to the point where we can just define her character. Her character is still developing. Right now, she's just struggling to take empathy, to take perspective, to get out of her own head. Right. So we're just going to, keep our focus on coaching her rather than on criticizing her. Okay. So the second thing I want to help you do is to swap the idea of I should have done this, I should have done that. Why didn't I find this earlier? Why have I broken the bond? All of these things to what can I try next? We need to focus as parents on the next best step. What's the next thing I can do? Okay. So don't get yourself into a loop of, I wish I found this earlier. Maybe I didn't lead her correctly. Maybe I wasn't a good leader, because that's actually a cognitive distortion. It's a cognitive distortion called hindsight bias, right? Where we look back in the hindsight, and we have a bias about things that at the time seemed like perfectly good choices, or maybe they were the only choices we have, right? It's the idea that we all do the best we can with what we have. You did the best you can with what you have. And you don't want to catastrophize in hindsight. Many of us parents do that. Oh no, I ruined my child. Oh, I damaged them forever. I traumatized them forever. Oh, because I didn't breastfeed, because I didn't have a natural birth, because I didn't bond with them enough, because I sent them to school, because everyone's got to take a deep breath, shake off that thinking. There's no such thing as perfect. Okay. So if the past wasn't perfect, right? Even if it wasn't perfect, and none of us have a perfect past with our child, then let's ask ourselves, what would leading her well look like today? Okay. Moving forward, how can we help her now? What can we do to build her self-efficacy, to create forward motion, to look for, okay, you know what? She's reached this place. We are where we are. Let's do the next thing. And by the way, she's still very young. So really, we don't need to ruminate too much on the past because we have a lot of time ahead of us, okay? But I get why you want to address these behaviors, because it's true that scratching friends who will look on your iPad is not going to make you friends, right? That's not going to be good for her. That's not going to be helpful, okay? So here's the deal. You are not going to be able to catch every impulse. That's true. It's too fast, okay? But you can guide her before and after, okay? So we've got to scratch the belief that you have to catch every scratch before it happens, because you might not be able to, and that's just going to lead you to feel helpless and frustrated, okay? But I do want you to build a culture of reflection and repair and of preparation, okay? So before she's going into a situation of a play date, before her sister gets home from school, before she gets out her iPad, I want you to look at her and I want you to tell her, you know, you're playing with Jenny right now. Jenny might want to come and play your game, and she might not understand your rules, or she might look at your iPad, or she might get in your space, or she might suggest something you don't like. And you can tell her, I don't like that idea, or please can I have some space, or I don't want to play right now. You can give her scripts of what she can say, but what you may not do is scratch. You may not use violence to tell your friend or your sister that you don't like the way they're playing. Here's what you will do. Okay. And you're going to get her to look at you. You're going to try and make a deal with her. Here's the deal. Here's what's going to happen. Now, I want to tell you something. I do this with my kids in many different scenarios. I'll say to them something like, sweetie, we have a lot of guests coming over this afternoon. There are going to be some kids who are going to play with your toys. You may not, scream at them, grab it from them, hit them, or anything like that. What you may do is right now, you may take your toys that you don't want to share and go and put it in the cupboard in your room. Okay. And we can put those away, but everything that's out is going to get touched by other people. And you may not be violent or aggressive or just unkind towards them. You've got to be a good host. So you actually have to break down the exact behaviors that you expect to see, what they can do, what they can't do, right? What they must not do. And it's going to help her to kind of build a mental model of what might happen, because she's having trouble taking perspective, imagining the other person, feeling empathy. But you need to tell her in advance, you know, we're about to play this and this. They might not understand your rules. That doesn't mean you're allowed to scratch. Okay. So that's in advance. Okay. Then after this happens, right, we need to help her, say I prepared or I didn't prepare and it happened and she didn't manage to regulate herself. She didn't manage to catch it. We want to help her to build a character of reflection, okay, even if it's hours later, okay, because that's what builds that long-term accountability and character. Hours later, I'll give you an example. I was not well a couple of days ago and I took a nap because I wasn't feeling well. And my son knew that I was taking a nap and my husband asked him not to wake me up. And he came in and he woke me up. And that's really thoughtless behavior. That's really disrespectful to your parents. That's really unkind. That's impulsive. It's very selfish, right? But he did it. Now, I managed in that moment not to get triggered and mad in the same moment, but rather a little bit later to come to him and say, you were asked not to wake me up. You knew that I was asleep. I find it really quite shocking that you would be so disrespectful of my sleep and so selfish of your own needs and not regulate yourself and wait and be patient. That upsets me because I want to build the kind of family where we're thoughtful of each other, where we take care of each other, where we protect each other's sleep, where we can, be patient and control our impulses because we're putting someone else's need above our own. And you're absolutely old enough to understand that and to respect that. And I'm very surprised that you haven't. And I think it's really okay for you to share that with her, right? And you don't need to share it in a shaming way. I said to him, I love you so much, and I know that you love me, and I know that you didn't mean to hurt me, but that behavior was a very poor choice. It really was not a good thing to do. It really made me feel really disrespected, and it strikes me as very unthoughtful, and I hope that you're never going to do that again. And he took it on, and he said, I'm sorry, I understand, I won't do it again. I hope he doesn't do it again. But the point is to share with them in the breakdown, in the repair, right? To say, honey, scratching someone else just because they misunderstood your rules or looked at your game is not acceptable behavior. I can't let you do that. And the truth is, it really hurts people, and it makes them not want to play with you. It makes them think, oh my gosh, she's just going to scratch me and I have no idea why. And that's not what you want your friends to think, right? You want your friends to think that you're a safe person to play with, that you're a pleasant person to play with, that you're not a violent person, right? And so how are we going to make amends? And what you can do is to help her actually write a sorry letter. Understand that there are consequences. Mary doesn't want to play with you tomorrow because you scratched her last time. And she felt that was really unjustified. And I know you did it because she was disrupting your game. But the truth is that violence is never the answer with friends, right? She wasn't threatening you physically. There's no reason for you to scratch her. You can just talk to her and say, that's not how I'm playing the game. Okay. Those are the types of things that we want to give our children. Okay. Last question from Isa. Hello, Isa. And she writes, I have a 12-year-old, quite smart and daring kind. What if he keeps crossing the boundaries we set around screen time? What natural consequences can be set? Can I get to cancel next day screen? Of course you can. Isa, your 12-year-old and everybody else's 12-year-old in the world is going to push boundaries around screens, is going to sneak screens, is going to get around parental controls, is going to lie about their screen usage. And you know why that is? It's because screens are really addictive. They're dopamine-laced drugs that we all are on. And they are not, 12-year-olds that is, are not built to withstand that kind of seduction. None of us are, okay? And therefore, he needs a lot of help in the form of strong parental boundaries and follow-through and consequences to be able to withstand and resist, right, the amount of screen consumption he's getting, okay? So the natural consequence for crossing the boundary around screen time is that you're not trusted with screen time anymore, okay? If you lie about your screen time usage on Monday, then you're not going to get any screen time usage on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and we could try again next Monday, right? That kind of thing. And he needs to understand that this is something you'll follow through on, okay? Because he cannot be expected to resist this by himself at 12 years old. Okay, Isa, does that make sense? Do you have any follow-up questions or pushback or resistance for me? I'm happy to iron out the details for you, but absolutely you need to set those limits for him and help him with that, because he will not be able to do so on his own for sure, okay? Dr. Saravanapriya, hello. How will they regulate screen time when parental controls are off when they are adolescent or young adult? Well, that's kind of the whole point of childhood, is that we gradually transfer more and more privileges in accordance to responsibility. So we don't give an 18-year-old the keys to our car, right? Until they've practiced and gotten a license and driven with an adult in the car and pass tests. And then we help them to learn more and to practice more. And eventually they're safe to drive a car on their own. But if you give a 12-year-old a car, right, that's just reckless. That's just dangerous. They are not yet ready for that level of responsibility. If you give a 12-year-old full access to screens without parental controls, I think that you're setting them up to fail. There's zero chance that they'll be able to regulate themselves. By the way, I don't know that they'll be able to when they're 18, because most 18-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 52-year-olds aren't able to. Screens are that captivating and that addictive. And so I don't know that they'll be able to. But it's not it's not really a reason to take off the boundaries when they're 12. So even if they're not able to when they're adults, it wouldn't be fair to them in their childhood to give them that kind of exposure that is going to make, focusing much more difficult, that's going to make social interactions much more difficult, that's going to destroy their dating life and their romantic opportunities and that kind of thing. So a few things here. First of all, yes, the idea is for them to gradually get more and more, responsibilities, and then also unlock more and more freedom and privilege. As we grow, we are able to do more things by themselves. It's kind of like saying, well, why wouldn't you let your 12-year-old roam the streets at night without parental controls? They're going to have to do that when they're 30. And it's like, well, yeah, because there's a difference between a 12-year-old and a 30-year-old, right? Slowly, they're going to learn and grow and get more and more responsibility, and then more and more freedoms and privileges. But also, even if they aren't safe when they're 30, it's our responsibility to keep them safe when they're 12, right? Does that make sense, Dr. Saravana? Does that answer your question? I hope it does. Look, I just know the effects of screens. So I think just throwing them to the wolves and being like, oh, learn to regulate yourself, child. Yeah, there might be the odd unicorn child that's able to do that. But I think for the vast majority of people with human brains, they're not going to be able to. That's an unfair expectation. And we know the effect that screens have on them, right? On their social and emotional development, on their focus, on their physical bodies, on their eyesight, and certainly all the things that they're exposed to on a screen. Like, if you don't have parental controls, you can be absolutely sure that your 12-year-old will be exposed to porn. And we know for a fact that porn is destructive to, their future sexual relationships with real human beings. So why would we risk that? Now, you might say, but Avital, they need to live in the real world. They need to develop their own kind of regulation. And I would say, well, you don't put your 12-year-old in a room full of cocaine and say, learn to regulate yourself, because when you're 22, you're on your own and you'll have to be able to regulate your cocaine intake, right? Now, okay, you could say screens aren't cocaine, and they're not. We use them, but we use them in moderation, and we use them with rules, a bit like driving a car. Right? It's a very dangerous thing. It's very high risk to drive a car. But that's why we have rules, boundaries, regulations, laws, age limits on driving a car. And there would be zero reason for us not to do that around social media, for example. Now, not all screens are created equally, right? Watching a movie on Netflix does not equal having an Instagram account. They don't have the same effect on our brains. But overall, you get the idea. Maybe, that's like, the difference between driving a Harley Davidson, motorbike or a bus, right? Okay, there are different levels of risk and different levels of age limitations and responsibilities that you need to unlock in order to get those privileges. But overall, it's a high risk endeavor, right? Erin says, based on your expertise and research, what do you suggest for daily, weekly screen time limits? I don't have like an age chart in front of me. Those can quite easily be looked up. I really like Jonathan Haidt's work, but I would certainly say that under the age of 3, there's no need for any screens whatsoever. It would be really, really great if toddlers could develop screen free. And if they are watching a screen, then rarely, like once a week, that type of thing, twice a week, not more than that. I think the screen recommendations for older kids do come in the form of hours a day. Like people say, 2 to 3 hours a day, that type of thing. But I can just tell you what I do in my home, which is that children, call it, 12 and under, okay, up until teenage years, are not spending daily time on screens. So, do they listen to music? Yes. Do they listen to audiobooks? Yes. Do they look up things on, ChatGPT or on Google if they need an answer to something? Sure. Do we do a family movie night once every few weeks? Yes. But to sit down and play a video game or watch Netflix or something, that would be once to twice weekly for about 2 hours. Okay. So it's a total of about 4 hours a week in my own home. But I also have certain guidelines of what would need to happen before we hang out with the screen. Now, I have lots of exceptions to this rule, okay? If we're traveling, if there's vacation time, if they're sick, right, then we're going to be much more lax on the rules for sure. But generally speaking, like during our regular schedule, that's what it's going to be like. And I would also say that, parents obviously need to model this as much as we can. It's very, very difficult. Our entire lives, all our recipes, all our contacts, all our planning is all on a screen. but we want to try and put away the phone from time to time. In my own family, we take a screen-free weekend. We observe Sabbath. So that means that the screens are away for both adults and children, for the entire like 24 hours on the weekend, which I find incredibly healthy and liberating and helpful and useful, because it's really, really hard to implement that type of thing on your own. But when you're doing it in a community, as part of a group, then it becomes a lot easier, because all the other kids are also off screens, all the other adults are also off screens. And that's really, really a gift that I'm so privileged to have. I know not everybody has that. But so that's basically where I would come down on it. And then I think the age of kind of, let's say 13 plus, often screens become a tool that they need in schools. Screens become something that they need in order to like my 13-year-old, his teacher is communicating with the class via WhatsApp, right? So at that point I would say, okay, you can upgrade from a dumb phone to a smartphone, but have a stop along the way where the smartphone has heavy parental controls, where the smartphone does not have any games or entertainment, where the smartphone does not have open internet access. So it's really just like a smartphone with a few specific apps, like maybe maps, maybe, bus fares, maybe WhatsApp. But even WhatsApp can behave a lot like a social media. And especially with girls, you've got to be really careful of that, right? So there you do definitely want parental controls on all of those things. Okay. And does that answer your question, Erin? Let me know if that makes sense to you, and if I can expand. And I'll just say, a lot of people, you can watch my reaction to unlimited screen times on YouTube, but a lot of parents will say, well, I don't limit screen times because of exactly what Dr. Saravana said before, which was, well, if I limit screen times, then how will they know how to regulate themselves? It will just create more tension and more conflicts. And I just want to say this: unlimited screen times might make less tension and conflict, but completely limited screen times also makes less tension and less conflict. When you just don't have it as an option, when it's just not on the menu, when it's just a consistent no, when they know, oh no, like in my house, it's like, oh, Friday at 4 p.m., that's when we have screens. We don't do it the rest of the time. Then there's also no conflict and nagging, because it's just a given. So the thing that reduces conflict is clarity. Okay. It is not allowing. It is not saying yes. It is not just going along with whatever they ask. It's clarity. When you as a parent have clarity on your rules, on your values, on your expectations, on how you're doing things around here, then your children are liberated from nagging, whining, and pestering you, because they just know where you stand. There's no point in constantly annoying you and asking you for things, because they know you're just going to be a no. It's boring already. Okay, so you can give them unlimited screen time so that they don't nag you, or you can give them completely limited screen time and make it super clear when they get screen time, and then they also won't nag you. You just have to hold the line for a few times and they get used to it and everything's okay. And I just prefer that route, because why would we run the risk on our children's developing brains and bodies? Like, we know enough to know it's not good. We don't know exactly what all the long-term effects are, but even from an optometrist perspective, from a physical perspective, from a social perspective, like, it's not good. We know it's not good. So why run that risk? Does that make sense? Erin, I hope that answers your question. And I will close up here, and I just want to send you all to highfam.com/studio. We are open for enrollment. If you like this kind of common sense, values-based coaching, if you want to raise children who are resilient, who are mentally tough, who are individuals, who have a strong backbone, who have broad shoulders, who are contributors to society, who aren't entitled and spoiled and exhausting and draining. If you want to build a home that you are proud of, that you enjoy, that's decluttered, that looks beautiful, that you feel good in your own skin, that you're moving, that you're taking care of yourself, that you don't have a 7-year-old interrupting your sleep 7 times a night, just feeling like, hey, I've got this. Parenting's a bit tough. Sure, there are ups and downs. Sometimes my kid's a bit annoying. Sometimes I have to fix a behavior. Of course, sometimes I'm tired, but overall, I love this. This is the most meaningful project of my life. I'm so glad I'm a mom. I enjoy my parenting, all of that kind of thing. If you want all of that, I can help you with that. That is my area of expertise, if I could say that word, or at least that's what I teach. That's what I learn, and that's what I teach. I digest a lot of research. I digest a lot of books. I digest a lot of parenting ideas and gurus and expertise, and then I make those the best. I run it through my filter. I'm not going to lie. I certainly have my own bias and my own skewed perception. I run it through my filter, but then I make it digestible, manageable, packaged up for you so that you can do it. right? You can do it. At the end of the day, great parenting, great families, great kids, great cultures are built just one habit at a time. The difference between the family that's dysfunctional and the family that's hyperfunctional is the difference between sitting around the table as a family for a meal, or getting out in nature, or switching off the screens, or having clear bedtime routines. It's just these little things that anyone can do if they have the right support, that completely change the entire vibe and the entire trajectory of our family, right? It goes from feeling like madness, chaos, difficult, exhausting, draining, or even just, even just the very modern, kind of very feminist idea of mental load, right? Mental overload. Even if we just took that idea, sorry, my camera's buggy. There we go. Even if we just took the idea of, it's too much for me. Why am I the only one? Why do I have to carry everything on my own? Why do I have to carry everything in my head? Why am I the one thinking about everybody and everybody's needs and everybody's concerns? Why is my husband concerned in the same way? Why is he like another child? Right? Even just that mindset. If I could just fix that mindset for you, so you don't feel like it's all on you, like you're drained, like you're torn into a million different directions. Even if I could just fix you with that and make you feel more empowered, then the studio would be worth it, right? That would make you feel like, oh, I'm walking on cloud 9. I'm capable. I'm able. I love my life. I love what I'm doing, right? Just that one little mindset would make a massive, massive difference to how you view your life, how you view yourself, how you view your kids. But of course, we do so much more than that. We establish these family projects, and we establish community and village, and we coach our children's mindset so that they're not stuck in negativity and whining and complaining. Blah, 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 right? It just goes on and on. It's actually more than I can share with you in any single video. I will share a video all about the studio, but just go to highfam.com/studio, check it out, because I really want every parent around the world to build a strong family culture and to feel like a great leader and to feel like you're loving this, and that you can do it because you can, and your kids deserve that, and you deserve that. Anna, hello. You say, I just joined the studio. Welcome. And I'm so excited. I've been following you for years and look forward to being part of the studio. Thank you for making my family life better. I appreciate you. Anna, what a wonderful way to end this session. Thank you so much. A huge welcome. I'm truly honored. I know that there are a lot of programs out there. I know there are a lot of coaches out there. And I don't take it lightly when you choose to invest your hard-earned money and your hard-earned time with me. Your attention is your most valuable resource. And if I'm able to offer you some value in exchange for that attention, then that means the world to me, and that makes everything worth it. And I'm so glad. Can't wait to see you on the inside. Much, much love. Keep on sending in those questions because I will keep on answering them until May 1st, when we kick off the studio with vision. That's what we're starting with, creating your vision, getting really clear, being that CEO, being empowered, feeling pumped up. And I want to turn you into that annoying mom in the mom group who doesn't have something to complain about, who doesn't feel like a victim, who isn't husband bashing all day, who's like, you know what? Actually, I'm good. I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling like I'm enjoying this, right? That's what I want to turn you into, okay? Just full disclosure. All right, I'll see you on the inside. Much love to you all. Bye.